hold up, wait a minute, stop the music. I need to ask a question. Do you know who that man is right there? Because if you do, then I have to tip my imaginary hat to you, my cultured individual. But if you don't worry, that's why I'm here. In this video, we're gonna learn why that man is known as the godfather of manga. Then we're gonna take a closer look at a couple of his works, and in the process of doing those two things, we're gonna learn why that man is so important for the comics industry as a whole. That is Osamu Tezuka. So Osamu Tezuka is really a legend. He worked in the animation and manga industry for over 40 years. He started his professional career as a comic book writer in 1946, just at the modest age of 17. Unfortunately, he did live a pretty short life, dying in 1989 when he was only 60 years old. Posthumously, Tezuka-san goes by many names, like the godfather of manga, the father of manga, or it is simply the god of manga. But why? What did Osamu Tezuka do to deserve such a prestigious title? I mean, surely manga existed before his professional career got started in 1946. In fact, the etymology of manga is said to date back at least to 1798, although it did mean something very different. That being said, there are some key differences between manga produced in Japan before World War II and manga that came out after World War II. Writer, translator, and general Japanese culture nerd Frederick Schodt has discussed in a number of his books how manga was used by the Japanese government pre-World War II to put propaganda into the hands of beloved cartoon characters. However, post-World War II Japan was occupied by American soldiers, so there was this disconnect finally between the government and the manga industry. And that is when Tezuka-san was finally able to put all of this childhood inspiration to work and create some of the most important comics of manga's history. See, as a child, Tezuka-san drew all the time, from insects to original characters. He had parents who encouraged and welcomed his creative mindset. He has accredited his mother for celebrating his creative storytelling, and his father introduced him to Walt Disney at a very young age, sparking this love for Walt Disney and his cartoons, and reportedly having seen Bambi over 80 times during his childhood, which is 80 times more than I've ever seen Bambi. I mean, is it really that good? So in 1945, Tezuka-san would be accepted into Osaka University's medical program, where he would study to later become a doctor, all while publishing professional manga on the side. And it would only be a few years from that point in history that Osamu Tezuka would create a character with international appeal and would take manga to new heights that it had never been to before. Can you guess who that character might be?
Soaring high in the skies, he may be small but only in size. Astro Boy, he is great.
So it's hard to analytically describe the impact of Astro Boy on not just Japanese culture, but comic culture in general. It is one of the best-selling comics of all time still to this day, with over 100 million copies sold worldwide. There is, of course, a clear inspiration from Walt Disney's early work. A lot of the characters have similar inking styles and facial features, and just in the way that they move, it all just feels very reminiscent of Disney. If you do go back and decide to read Astro Boy, you might find that it is not the most compelling form of storytelling, where Astro gets into some sort of fight in a chapter and the resolution is found at the end of the chapter, with Astro usually coming out on top. Again, it's not the most compelling form of storytelling, but it was exactly what I think Japan needed in the post-war years of World War II. And I mean, come on, if we're being honest, Shounen manga hasn't really changed that much since Astro Boy, and the whole formula seems to still be playing out to this day, if not in different circumstances. So Astro Boy, the manga, would run for 18 years. Of course, it would later be adapted to film, and of course, it would also be adapted to film for the States, which is why a lot of people in America still know who Astro Boy is. Although I'm guessing the amount of people who still know about Astro Boy is really in decline. But eventually the Astro Boy era would end for Tezuka-san, and he would go on to start a new path in his professional career. We call this his Gekiga era. So Gekiga is a term used by manga writers in Japan to disassociate themselves from manga writing and sort of those standardized tropes that comes with popular comic book writing. It's essentially the equivalent of what a graphic novel is in the States. So it's in this era that Osamu Tezuka distances himself from his children-focused audience and tries to write for adults, focusing on very heavy adult literary themes. And one such comic that he decides to do that in is called Ayako. Yeah, so I just want to give a quick disclaimer before we get into the Ayako summary, and I want to say that this book is not for kids. Do not buy your kids this comic book. Despite its very laxed age rating at a rating of 16 and up, I would still say be cautious about going into this with an immature mindset. You know, maybe 16-year-olds are more in tune with heavy literary themes that are built on rape, murder, incest, and a whole bunch of other horrible things. All I'm saying is that, look, I know what it's like to be scarred by a comic book. I somehow managed to get a librarian when I was in 2nd grade to allow me to check out a copy of Mouse. And let's just say I've never been the same since. So look, don't say that I didn't warn you. Life should have only gotten easier when Jiro survived the war. But war changes things, and when Jiro returned home to Yodoyama, too much of Japan had already changed, including himself and his family. His father, Sakamon Tenge, is a rude, conniving man with total control over his household. His brother Ichiro is a greedy opportunist, working hand in hand to please his father so that one day he can control the family's land and in turn their wealth. Sui, Jiro's sister-in-law, fades into the background of a silent house where a cloud of sadness follows her every step, while her little sister Naoko is as cheery and as personable as she was before the war, though a bit more outspoken. Beside his little brother Shiro, the sharpest, most clear-minded member of the Tenge family, Jiro stares into the eyes of a stranger, a new family member, Ayako, age 4. In Ayako, Tezuka-san showcases the horrors and atrocities inflicted on and committed by the Tenge family. In a world she is too young to understand, Ayako is ripped from a reality of normalcy and is treated as a catalyst for the family to abuse, shame, and humiliate. Over 30 years pass in Ayako's near 700 pages. With each year that passes, the Tenge family buries secrets on top of lies, underneath a bed of crime and wrongdoing. And at the bottom of all the deceit and harm is Ayako, innocent and betrayed by those closest to her. So I just want to quickly apologize for that somewhat vague summary. I tried my hardest when writing the summary to sort of come up with a fair middle ground that didn't spoil any of Ayako's really pertinent moments. One thing that makes Ayako an enjoyable read is sort of the shock factor you get as you go through the pages. Sometimes you'll turn a page and you'll just be in complete dismay by what the Tenges are trying to do throughout the story. Another question you might have might be, Alex, why would you read this if it is as graphic as you're describing? It's a good question. It's a fair question. So look, I am not trying to be the pretentious manga reader in the room, but reading Ayako is a lot like reading classic literature. And you know what's crazy? Even though technically it's not the most enjoyable thing to read about rape and incest and murder, Ayako is a very easy comic book to read despite its very harsh themes. Osamu Tezuka at this point in his career has been writing manga professionally for, I want to say, the better part of 25 years, and he has written a lot of manga up to this point. So his understanding of panel composition and just visual storytelling is on point, and he gets a lot of mileage out of panels with little to no words in a way that I've just never really experienced. And I think another thing that's really important to remember when reading Ayako is that yes, there is definitely a narrative here, but it's all built on this sort of secondary foundation, which is Osamu Tezuka's biggest critique of post-World War II Japanese society, and maybe just Japanese society in its entirety. However, I am a white boy talking about a comic book in my bedroom on the internet. So I'm gonna play my Gaijin card, which is essentially my foreigner card, and let Osamu Tezuka sort of describe his critique in a general sense for you right now.
僕は一番恐ろしいのは特に日本人の場合ですね。よく言われてることは、つまり日本人は管理社会が非常に徹底していて。全てこの団体でこの行動する、あるいはその、一つのその方向にですね全部そちらへ向いてしまうという性格がどうもあるようなんです。でこれがそのロボットに非常に似てるんじゃないかということなんですけどね。一番大きな非難はその日本人はクリエイティビティがない、つまり全てイミテーションであるということですね。で僕は今まではそうかも分かりません。つまりそのいろいろ海外のその文明を日本にその持ってくるにはですね、日本の方はそれを鵜呑みにして真似するということが一番簡単なことだということがその、もうなんていうんですか、もう常識みたいになってたわけですけど、これからは日本人のクリエイティビティというものがすごく尊重されるというよりもそれがその発揮できるんじゃないかと思います。
So I think the moral of the story here with this video is that Osamu Tezuka is a legend, and he's really got something for everyone, whether you're a child or an adult. And all I can really say is that after my time researching him and reading over Ayako and Astro Boy, I can say that I'm only more excited to learn more about his career through his work, although I'm betting it's going to be pretty hard for me to get a copy of Phoenix anytime soon. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. If you really liked it, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Despite the breaks in my content, I am getting much better about scheduling videos, and you'll see that in the coming future. So subscribe for more content, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching.